Welcome to today's dialogue, Universes and Cosmos Convos. Oh, I spelled that wrong. It's December 11th, 2024, and today a few things have happened recently, and one is that I came across this video on YouTube by Sabine Hossenfelder. I watch her videos sometimes. They're about science. And this particular video is called AIs Predict Research Results Without Doing Research. And she talks about just that. AIs being able to predict the result of a study that was done, even though the AI was not trained on that study. So they can make inferences or whatever they do. But I didn't just come across this video, it was at the top of my YouTube feed this morning. And it often happens that the top YouTube video in my feed, when I first click on it during the day, is very relevant. And that's what got me thinking about the title of today's video. Because over the years I've done self-dialogue with myself, which the self word is meant to be more than just the self. It's like the self that is one with the universe. So then I realize, when I'm talking with myself, my phone is beside me or I'm on my computer or whatever. So my phone is listening too. And that's changing the algorithm that I'm going to see on YouTube, I would think. And so it's already part of the conversation. And it's already giving me recommendations based on probably what I'm talking about with myself. And I wouldn't even be surprised if it's inferring what I might be thinking or pondering. Just like this video here where Sabine is talking about how the AIs can predict results of the studies. And then she was also saying that it can find hidden details that we don't put together, or we can't make those connections, or we haven't made those connections. So she's saying there's hidden results in the science that has already been done, which she finds interesting. And then this point that's on the screen here, it's because humans can't digest all the literature. And I'm likely going to watch this video again, but this was my point with what I've been working on lately, even in one of the last videos about putting some studies into Notebook LM and seeing if it can make the connections. And it didn't really do a good job of that. And then I put some of the information into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT seemed to get it a bit more. So let's see. I asked, where is it? So I gave, this is what Notebook LM said about a couple of YouTube videos. So what creative inferences can you make? And these YouTube videos, they referenced studies. So I was just using the YouTube videos as an example. And I was trying to see if it would say anything about how the DC current in the eyes being faster than the brain, if I've understood it correctly, I have to do some more research to understand myself, is in any way related to the concept of syntropy, which is a converging energy that flows backwards in time. So it's basically an attractor moving towards a certain future. I'm not saying certain as in it's certain to happen, but a particular future. Now, there could be different attractors, right? Which could be the different possible futures. And some could be stronger than others, and then maybe some take some kind of energy to get into other attractors. And I'm interested in this because I've experienced versions of myself that seem to be just like that, different versions of myself. And like, what is the attractor that pulls me towards being able to be that for some period of time, and then I go back into like a lower state. And to me, it feels like when I am that other version of myself, it's a future self, a future possible self, or also possibly like a parallel version of myself, which could be in a parallel world, things like that. And then like, what does that have to do with the possibility of what I want to research and find out using this process, that this video on YouTube that I saw, like using my questions and my insights and things that I've written down, plus the science that I've come across and looking further into it, to really like find this mechanism of this, you know. Because, for example, you can read about, oh, the world is holographic. Oh, it's a simulation. Oh, it's all energy. Oh, it's all light. Oh, it's a quantum field. And there's all possibilities existing simultaneously. And then they say, oh, we've solved the mystery of quantum physics because the quantum equations are actually inside, like subjective energy and all of that. And then when the wave function is collapsed and we communicate something, there's information loss, and that becomes material on the outside. So, you know, with all of that, everyone in science mostly is saying there's some kind of weird thing going on, right? And then people who, like me, experience something called mania, which to me feels like a totally different version of myself, parallel world version of myself, what have you. All of that is in alignment with all of the possible mysteries of quantum physics and lots of different theories of things, right? But this is an actual experience of the theoretical. So it's not theoretical, right? So how to connect the theoretical physics or the studies and the research, whether it's physics or whether it's the actual anatomy and physiology of the eye, like how does this happen? So like, where is the switch? How does it happen that I switch? And I'm starting to feel like, after watching the video the other day, I was talking about that the switch is in the eye, and basically the brain speeds up to the eye and it meets it. There's more than meets the eye or whatever. Or there's more when we meet the eye, what the eye is actually seeing without the distortions of the projections of the ego, to put it in one way. And so that is another mode of being. And even today I was thinking about how, and I talked about this in my book, that there's fight or flight or freeze or feign, but there's also free, meaning being free from the ego, being free from patterns, being free from the past, being free from so many things. And when that happens, there's so much more energy to see and be more and act differently and behave differently. It breaks all one's patterns, so we're no longer that version of ourself. So when I saw this thing about the eye, I was like, oh. And then, in mania, it's known that at times there can be enlarged pupils, right? So it could be the pupil that does something. So anyway, I researched Notebook LM and I kind of played around with it, and I probably will more in the future. And then all of a sudden this next video comes up that's related and meaningful. And this is how I usually consume YouTube, is the top video that comes into my feed, and when I open it, is very relevant, and I just sort of watch that and spend a bit of time pondering about it. So it would be nice to, in real time, talk about it. So that's what I'm doing, and that's how I want to integrate real time into this process, because it's happening in real time, and learning to share somewhat in real time. So as I was saying with the self-dialogue, it really is like a universe dialogue. So now I think I can attempt to make that more intentional. Like, yes, I'm talking with the universe, I'm talking with AI already. My phone is listening to me. Also, what I'm talking about right now, I intend to grab the transcript in order to train the AI, right? So then it knows what my intentions are. It knows what I'm trying to do. And so talking about it, things like, this is what I'm trying to do, and going from there. And so yeah, this video, like I said, is very related to the question I had about using AI to help to figure this out. And so she's not saying what I'm doing in the video in particular. So I have a lot of stuff and insights that I've written, and the 6 dimensions and 9 lattices that I talk about, I'm starting to feel like this is sort of the operating system of that other state that happens when we switch into it. We process information differently, we perceive differently, we use language differently, we act differently, we sense the outside world differently and commune with it differently. And there's different biological things that are going on when that's happening. And what are the related things? So getting studies from all these different aspects, and also using the information that I've channeled. So part of it is all of that and so much more. So just getting into that, and even just going about it by saying, okay, every day I'm going to talk with this process for about an hour on average, and just keep going like that and see where it goes, if anywhere. But I'm glad to have that insight, because the other thing that happened was I was reading an article by Tom Morgan, and he was writing from the perspective of someone he referred to as Andrew, which wasn't that person's real name. But he was writing about this Andrew person, and one thing Andrew said is, I'd narrowed it down to a simple premise. I get joy from the word, not from the number, because they were working in finance. And I just really resonated with this getting joy from the word. Getting joy from the word. Because part of me feels resistant to it because, oh, they're just a bunch of words. But I do get joy from the word. Even yesterday, I went back to work, and it was a lot of sort of being social, and I haven't been social in quite a while, and it was okay, it was fine, but then when I got home, I was very drained. And when I woke up this morning, I felt more depressed, almost like the depression was coming back. And I think it's just a bit of a adjustment period, but just sort of allowing myself to get joy from these words, the words that come from watching the YouTube video, or the insights, the words that I already have written, the words that I will write, the words that I speak, and just getting into that again. And then this Andrew character describes having to quit first to make something happen. And Tom calls it getting a wink from the universe. And I really like that wording. And I wrote to myself that Sabine's video is a wink from the universe. So I'd already watched her video, and then I read Tom Morgan's article. And I was like, that's what it is. It's a wink from the universe. And that's when I realized it really is a conversation with the universe or with the cosmos. And there was another sentence, I'm singing in the key of me again. And being able to talk is like singing in the key of me. And there's another quote here, we cannot see a world where synchronistic winks like the one Andrew received are even possible. Well, the thing is that I do get these winks, right? And even something as simple as the perfect YouTube video of the day at the top of my list on YouTube is a wink. You know, I think I need to follow the winks and just have these dialogues and see where I can go with them. And I was also, yesterday I was watching a Diary of the CEO podcast episode, and Stephen Bartlett was interviewing Vanessa Van Edwards. And I'd heard of her years before, I think when she was really starting, and I think she had something on Udemy, like a course or something. And so now I found the whole interview very valuable and practical, because she is an introvert and she learned to communicate with people when it wasn't her natural tendency. So one thing that I wrote down is that she said, do I want to watch their good? And she said that in the context of, she did a TED Talk where she analyzed TED Talks, and she found that the most watched TED Talks had more hand gestures so I would say in 18 minutes, I think she said the top TED Talks had 400 and something hand gestures, whereas the other ones had in the low 300s or something. So that was what the difference was, because each person that does a TED Talk, I'm pretty sure it was just TED, not TEDx, each person, they're good, right? They have something to offer. They've studied, they are an expert in something. And so the question is, do I want to watch their good? And that planted a seed in my brain for sure, where like what I'm doing right now, I don't think anyone really wants to watch this. It's not good, right? It's not doesn't have production quality or what have you. But I would say that it's good in that it's in the spirit of goodness, and trying to find that within myself, or to find that good version of myself that I want to be. And I even felt recently like maybe I missed the boat, right? Like there's this manic version of myself, like a magic version of myself that is more extroverted, has lots of energy, all these different characteristics that I don't generally have. And I've worked to bring quite a bit of that into my daily life. But with this experience recently of depression and sort of backpedaling, it feels like I missed the boat. Maybe I can never get into that syntropy attractor that is that best version, that I would like to be. And maybe I just get to see the person that I could be or I could have been, but it's not really possible. Maybe it activates just enough to make life more meaningful, in that I get a large dose of meaning when I'm in those states. And don't get me wrong, like before I had this 3-month depression recently, I had 4 years of creativity where I didn't really go into a major depression, and I was very creative, and I slept and I balanced life and work and all of that, and things were good. So I still had access to much of what I have access to in mania. So it's just, I made the mistake and ended up in a depression. And I do think I'm going to have another number of years of good creativity. So I do have access to that. But from that perspective of depression, it feels like I just can't be that. Or even feeling very introverted and more introverted, it seems, as time goes on. And that's just another reason for me to spend some time with my voice and talking to the universe, having these cosmos convos, like cosmos convos every day or whenever I can, at least, and just seeing where it goes. And rather than, or in addition to trying to sort through some of the information, just talk about like what it's all about, like what I'm trying to get at, you know? And what struck me about listening to Vanessa Van Edwards is she talked for, a good 2 hours out of the 2 hours and a half or whatever it was. And she really was able to explain each thing. And I was like thinking to myself, or I'm thinking to myself now, like, what if I at least had 2 hours worth of points that I could explain out of all of this information? Because the thing is, I can read through and I understand what I wrote and why I wrote it, and I understand and could write more and extrapolate more on that. But what is it that needs to be explained? And that's what I'm hoping to figure out with ChatGPT and Notebook LM or whatever. I basically want to see if it sees what I see, because I see the connections already. And so, just to go back to connections for a minute, what did ChatGPT say here? I don't know if I totally went into that, but I asked possible connections, DC current in the eye, syntropy. Syntropy as converging energy flowing backward in time reflects theoretical framework where systems move towards order and coherence, counterbalancing entropy. So what does it say? Yeah. See, this stuff that it's saying here, I'm not even going to read it right now, but speculative. Yeah, like, this is exactly what I'm thinking, without being able to really say it, right? So, like, for example, say somebody is in psychosis. Like, I've been in psychosis. imagine trying to explain an experience. Well, we might try, but then it's just called, oh, well, it's this symptom or that symptom. But like the actual experience of something is completely different than being able to explain it, right? So for me, when I read this or watched that video about the DC current in the eye operating faster, I literally had an experience inside of understanding something, but then being able to put it into words. And that can happen with lots of different times and in people's lives. Like, how do I put this into words? I don't even know. It's like ineffable, right? So the ChatGPT basically put it into words because it has possible connections, then it has speculative insights, and the possible connections are cool too. And it says speculative insights, and this is what I see basically. The faster DC current in the eye could represent a physical manifestation of a system optimized for light energy interaction and coherence, a hallmark of syntropy. This could make the eye a window, not just to the soul, but to a deeper syntropic flow of energy that aligns biological processes with a greater cosmic order. So this, it's not even saying as much as I would add. So what are the biological processes? The brain being slower, right? And then the cosmic order is a little bit faster. So we're always just a little bit behind. We're like already living in the past. But the reason we're living in the past is because the brain is slower because it's living in the past, right? So then when you drop the past and the ego and all that, you're no longer living in it. And then that would speed up the brain because the past is slower, wasting energy. It would, like, we have images and sounds in our mind that I think that sound image together is slowing the brain because there's images and sounds going on in perception in the present moment, but we're not living and seeing that, right? We're not seeing the whole of life. We're seeing through the whole of the ego, like a whole. We're living in a whole, not like HOLE, not the whole, HWHOLE. So that's what I'm kind of seeing with that. So it's saying something that I'm seeing, and I'm seeing more than that, if you know what I mean. But this is really good. I like this. So I would put this, actually I have a big long document somewhere, and it has, yeah, I think it's this one. I don't know what it has here. Table of contents, dialogue 7. So I would put this as I'm just going to put it as dialogue 8, even though it's much later. I'll just put it here since it's of that kind. But I think it seems to me that ChatGPT is smarter than people know, because most people aren't really prompting it like this. I think I already talked about this, but maybe not. I was sort of looking, I was looking for videos of people prompting ChatGPT and talking to it, and there was nothing like this. There was people like arguing with it and trying to reason or trick the ChatGPT, getting ChatGPT to change its mind, you know, like we do with humans. You know, it's like very much that level of arguments and stuff. So I'm not really interested in that. I'm more interested in what Zabine is talking about. And what is the other thing here? So that's good. I got all these different documents. So I really wanted to talk about that YouTube video that I saw.